care for collections from every county, and we welcome visitors from every county in this state. With more than 500,000 visitors in a normal year, we are the most visited museum in the state. And with a history of 140 years of pioneering exhibit styles, MPM is a well-known leader of museums throughout the world. The legacy known internationally and beloved by generations of Wisconsinites is jeopardized by the building we have called home since the 1960s. We are so grateful to Governor Tony Evers for including the Future Museum in his budget, recognizing the importance of this great institution, the research community, and future generations across the state. We wouldn't be here today, however, without bipartisan support of this project. Over the last several months, many of the legislators here today, as well as many of their colleagues, visited and met with MPM to learn about the failing condition of this building, the imperative of moving, and the importance of the museum's work in research, exhibits, education, and collections. I want to thank them for taking the time to visit and learn about this project as you deliberated on this state budget. And thank you to those who we met outside of the museum as well. This is truly a public-private endeavor. The state's $40 million in support will leverage another $200 million in additional investment to construct the building, design and build new exhibits, move the collections, and ensure the museum is financially sustainable for the long term. The impact of the state's investment extends far beyond the building that will house the new museum. It is an investment in Wisconsin, our history, and our future. It is an investment in education of more than 150,000 school children who each and every year come to the museum to learn about the nature and about the world cultures. It's an investment in the preservation and protection of over 4 million precious objects and specimens that serve as a library of life here in Wisconsin, on this planet, and beyond. It's an investment in tourism, in research, in adult learning, in community science, and in our state's natural habitats and cultural history. So thank you again for your support of this historic investment in Wisconsin's Natural History Museum. And now it is my honor to introduce a champion of this project, Representative Jesse Rodriguez of the 21st Assembly District.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse Rodriguez. I represent the 21st Assembly District, which includes the cities of Oak Creek, South Milwaukee, and Franklin. And today I am joined by Speaker Robin Voss, along with members of the State Assembly, who will be talking to you today about the state budget that we passed this week. First, I want to start off by thanking Dr. Sensky for hosting us today at the museum for this press conference. And I'm very happy about the investment we're going to make to the museum in this budget, and I look forward to seeing the completion of this project. On Tuesday, the State Assembly completed their work of passing the state budget as approved by the Committee on Joint Finance. Families at home often tell me, Jesse, don't spend too much, don't borrow more than you can handle, invest and put away money for a rainy day. And that is exactly what we did in this budget this year. When it comes to health care, this budget invests in hospitals, long-term care facilities, and dental clinics to make sure that Wisconsinites have access to affordable, high-quality health care when they need it. Our budget directs more money to long-term care facilities and the long-term care workforce. So often I hear from people in my communities telling me that it is hard to recruit and retain the workforce for these long-term care facilities, and this budget invests over $440 million into long-term care facilities and $170 million for long-term care workforce. It will also provide $252 million for nursing home reimbursement rates, and will provide $104 million to staff who perform direct care over the biennium. This is over $26.4 million than was recommended by the governor. In addition, we will direct $104 million over the biennium to direct caregivers of family care, and we're going to increase funding for personal care workers by $78 million over the biennium. We're also going to provide an additional $3 million for home health skilled nursing services over the biennium. And we also decided to invest in our hospitals. Many of the hospitals in our region here and around the state provide services to a huge percentage of low-income patients. In this budget, we provide $40 million of what we call disproportionate share to, payments to hospitals who provide those services, high percentage of services to low-income patients. And another very important area that we heard a lot, and I hear from my community too, is reimbursement rates for dental care. So we have increased that to 40% reimbursement rates. We invested in outpatient mental health and substance abuse services, and this will be an investment of $23.8 million over the biennium. And one of the other things, there were many other things that we invested, but one of the other things that I know I heard a lot here in our area too was EMS assistance. Over the biennium, we increased reimbursement rates for ambulance services by $16.7 million, all funds to EMS. And this budget invests in resources to our local communities. It also funds needed services for our elderly and underserved. And it also provides funding in these areas that will provide more access to people across the state, and will ensure our most vulnerable have the resources that they need. Up next is Representative Duco, who will talk about transportation.
Thank you, Jesse. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all heard all the kids running behind you, how nice it is to have them back in the museum and enjoying it. So it's very, very exciting. I'm here to talk about the East-West. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the Marquette, more money on the zoo interchange, and we did not do the section in the middle. So we've enumerated it in the budget. We put $40 million to keep the project on the books and get it going. 70% of all commerce in this state goes through this area. It's congested if you drive it on a regular basis, which my husband does. It gets to be a nightmare. So this is people from Chicago coming up. It makes it easier for tourists to come. People in my district come down here to work, and it'll make their commute much easier. So this has been needed for many, many years, and I'm thrilled that we've got it moving forward. Thank you very much. And next up is Representative Canotta, who's going to talk about personal property tax.
Thank you, Representative Duco. Representative Dan Canotta from the 24th Assembly District includes the Milwaukee County communities of Glendale and Brown Deer. And we've all heard the phrase, and we heard it a lot during campaign time, build back better. Well, the elimination of personal property tax is the better part of Build Back Better, and Governor Evers and President Biden, we know, have used that phrase. And why does that make that phrase better? The personal property tax is an owner's tax that's placed on businesses for things like the chairs that you're sitting on, furnishings, light fixtures, things like that, that small businesses are subject to pay, even as the government closed those businesses for the COVID crisis. So these businesses were shuttered, but yet they were still subject to the personal property tax. So it was time, and we have made efforts to eliminate this over the years, but at this point in time, and with our financial situation in the state budget, we're able to eliminate the personal property tax and take that onerous burden off of businesses, free up the dollars that they were paying in tax, and sometimes even more dollars in complying with the tax and taking inventory and paying for accounting services and things like that, that they can now retain those dollars and invest back into their business, into their people, into growing, and that's what we want to do. So the economy's opening back up, we're building back, we eliminate this tax, keep those dollars in the community to grow back and build back better. So I hope that Governor Evers goes along with the personal property tax. We have allowed for it in the budget, and it would be a great asset to all of our communities. Thank you, and we'll introduce Representative Whitkey now.
Well, we'll work through this. Good morning. My name is Representative Bob Whitkey. I represent the 62nd Assembly District, which is in northern Racine County. And I would like to thank Dr. Sensky and all of my colleagues as work that we did on the Building Commission to craft the responsible capital budget. Representative Swearingen and I, along with many of my colleagues in this area, advocated for the enumeration of the funds for this fine museum that will continue on the display of the Wisconsin heritage for generations of school children to come. I get the best part of this program. It's fitting that we're in a museum. Historic tax cuts are in this budget. Republicans continue their priority to lessen the tax burden in the state and send money back to the individuals, families, and businesses that have created the surplus by their operation and their contribution in the tax system. $3.4 billion is the tax cut that's included in this budget. That's on top of the $600 that we provided earlier in the year that was signed into law by the governor in February. Typical family will see approximately $1,200 in income and property tax relief over the biennium. And I think that's the best way for us to move out of the health emergency we're in and provide real relief to families and individuals and businesses across the state. There are two components to this. On the income tax side, there's $2.3 billion income tax cut. The largest portion of that will come from a reduction in the third bracket rate from 6.27 to 5.3, and that covers the largest portion of our middle-class taxpayers in the state. We will also create a child and dependent care credit that will provide some relief to families that need to get back to work, that need to get back into child care. We have also exempted all active military pay, joined 26 other states, including many of our neighbors around that exempt this type of pay from income tax. And we've increased the R&D tax refundable credit from 10 to 15%, which was requested from us from companies in my district that have high-paying research jobs that they want to retain in this state. Lastly, as Representative Knodel said, we have $650 million that we've put into property tax relief, and that includes the $200 million with removing the personal property tax. With that, I will let our leader, Speaker Voss, provide his comments on the budget.
Thank you, Representative Whitkey. Good morning, everybody. We started the budget process what seems like a lifetime ago, back in February, where Governor Evers presented his budget. It was a different document than we see today. The document that he presented was fairly partisan, focused on growing the size of government, raising taxes, expanding the scope of what government does. We actually took the time to listen, traveled around the state, did listening sessions, and the document that is before him today is dramatically different in a way that I think really benefits the state. There are some parts of the budget that did remain bipartisan. Number one, I do want to thank Ellen and the board of the Milwaukee Public Museum, where they did an effective job of convincing us that the investment that we are making in this facility is going to benefit the entire state, the entire region, but it continues what Republicans have worked on to help rebuild downtown Milwaukee into the place that it is rapidly becoming, where it is an entertainment destination, not just to watch sports, but also to go to a world-class museum, and that will be an attraction that all of Wisconsin gets to enjoy. The budget before us today is one that continues to invest in middle-class families. It invests in the small businesses who suffered so much under the pandemic, and it also prioritizes the important things that we need to spend our resources on. Of the dollars that are being increased in spending, more than half of those go to a single line item, and that's health care. It's increasing support for our dental community. It's increasing support for hospitals, making sure that those who do not have health insurance have the ability to get the care that they need. And it also makes sure that under the Affordable Care Act, we continue to make sure that the premiums that folks pay on the lower income scale are as low as they possibly can be to ensure that they're affordable. My colleagues have also talked about the money that we're giving back to families. The income tax cuts for the average family will be almost $1,000 a year. The property tax cuts that we will see for the average home will be over $100 in the first year. So you are talking about real money that is permanent. Over the course of the past year, we have seen the federal government decide to give out one-time stimulus checks where you just have something appear in your checkbook. What we're doing today is permanent. The tax cuts will be on the books forever. And the dollars that you say will not be one-time. They will be over and over as you get the opportunity to invest in your priorities based on what your family needs. So our message is pretty simple today. We started out with a very partisan document, and we ended with a document that got the support of Republicans and Democrats. It's the first time since 2007 that you have had a bipartisan vote on a state budget. And that is only because we worked incredibly hard to listen to the people of Wisconsin. We kind of tossed out the partisan document that began and ended up one where I think hopefully the entire state of Wisconsin can look and say we're proud of the work that the legislature has done. So our message to Governor Evers is very simple. Sign the bipartisan budget. Now is not the time to play politics. It's not the time to use your veto pen to craft a liberal document, because we have one that is already bipartisan, that focuses on the priorities of the state, and we should make it law as quickly as possible. So with that, we're happy to answer a few questions.
Speaker, have you talked with the governor in the past 48 hours, 72 hours? Do you have any indication?
So unfortunately, if you remember what Governor Evers said, is that there's no reason to talk to the legislature. So I have not spoken to Governor Evers since sometime late last year. So we have done this document entirely on our own with zero input from the administration. That is not how we would have chosen to do it. We've sent letters, we've asked for meetings, all met with a deaf ear. So the only way that we get to communicate with Governor Evers is by having a press conference like this, which is really unfortunate, and that's why I'm trying to look as directly as I can in the camera to say to Governor Evers, please sign this bipartisan document. You won't meet with us, you didn't work with us, but you have one chance to show the state of Wisconsin that you can put your politics aside and you can sign this document.
If he goes the line item veto route, I'm sure you and a lot of people have looked through this document. What are some of your biggest concerns about what he could do to the document?
Well, I mean, of course, the governor has the most powerful line item veto in the country. We have tried as hard as we could to minimize the opportunity for him to play mischief with the budget, but he could decide that the government needs the money more than the taxpayers. He could veto the opportunity for us to give property tax relief. He could say we are not going to have a large increase in funding for subsidizing the premiums under the Affordable Care Act. So he has lots of opportunities to make the document significantly more liberal. I just don't know what he'll do.
Are you going to wait for the governor to call for the budget before you present it to him, or are you going to send it to him right away?
No, I'm actually heading to Madison later today, so assuming that the document is ready, I will sign it and send it to the governor, so he has 6 days to act. So that means sometime after the 4th of July holiday, he should be ready to go.
So you're breaking with the tradition of kind of waiting for the governor to call for the budget?
No, that's not the tradition. It kind of depends. I mean, normally when a big document like this, it's not like you didn't know it was coming. Our fiscal year ended yesterday, so the quicker we can get the document to the governor, the quicker he has the opportunity to act, the sooner the citizens of Wisconsin can say, are we paying less in income taxes? Are we going to have increases for the rates that people who provide medical services to the poor are paid? I think people need to know.
So you can go have it tonight?
I don't know exactly how the process works for the timing, but I will sign it today and then it goes to the governor.
If you were to veto the entire budget, is there any appetite among Republicans to begin this process again, or what would be your next move?
Well, the first thing we would do is whatever he decides to veto, we would probably reconvene and do a veto override. Because don't forget, Matt, we had bipartisan support for this budget, which is something that is in many ways historic. So I certainly think that the opportunity for him to show that Republicans were correct in what we did, which is to throw his budget out, do one that was based on the reality of the world we live in, not the fantasy world that Madison is. And I think at the end, he probably is going to accept that because the majority of the public agrees with us, and I think it's a really good document for him to sign.
You also passed a bill that would label legislators' disciplinary records as confidential. Why pass that?
Yeah, so the Legislative Human Resources Office is something where in the past each agency, each legislative branch kind of did things on their own. We're just in a modern world where we are much more subject to potential lawsuits and trying to make sure that we protect the rights of our employees. So we made the decision that when somebody files a complaint, that they have the right, like in most private businesses and in most private situations, to file a complaint without fear of immediate retribution. So I still believe that that goal should be one that we say where I don't want to have someone who is a whistleblower or wants to file a complaint against a legislator or another staff member to feel threatened because on day one, just because they happen to work in the public sector, their name is going to be released to the public before an investigation is even done. So I'm also proud of the fact that that bill passed with, I think, unanimous support. So it's not a partisan document. It certainly isn't one that we wanted to do, but protecting the victim, the person who makes the allegation, to me should be our paramount purpose, as opposed to having that second step, which is to expose them to the public.
I guess when we're talking about lawmakers, well, that's distinct, and we had a problem with a particular lawmaker, Democratic side, who was accused of harassment, and those records were kept confidential. I mean, isn't it right for the people to know that lawmakers have a disciplinary complaint placed against them?
Well, they will. I mean, but I also think that they have the opportunity to go through a process where the investigation is done in a way that guarantees that facts are found, as opposed to just the world that sometimes people live in where an allegation becomes truth. I don't think that's fair. It would have been very easy for us if we had looked at this in a partisan way to say, oh, this is a Democratic lawmaker, let's release the document to make him look bad. But we said, let's put politics aside and do what's right for the victims, which is why we said the victims asked not to be named. They did not want to all go public, so we thought let's follow that process, and that's the better way to do it. So I hope Governor Evers will also sign that bill because it's one that protects the victim, and at the same time, ultimately, when someone is found to have committed wrongdoing, the records do become public, but not until that point.
Would you also support the governor holding up and keeping those records confidential as well for his administration, for his staff, and his cabinet secretary?
You know, just like I had mentioned to Matt before, Governor Evers doesn't really believe in the concept of sitting down and discussing ideas to say, okay, let's find that consensus. What's the best way to be able to move forward? So he has never brought that topic up to me, and I guess if he would, I'd always be open to listening to his ideas. But knowing how he chooses to operate in the basement of the mansion and very rarely in public, it's probably unlikely that he's going to be able to even touch base with us on that. Thank you. Good job.
You're heading to Madison?